When the army is swallowed, then the Mahdi is going to be attacked by another army, and this is now an army of the Quraysh, an army of the Kalb. And remember that armies are under the control of governments. The Mahdi will defeat this army, and when an army is defeated, that is the end of Saudi Arabia. Goodbye to bad rubbish. Goodbye to bad rubbish. Let it be recorded in my book tonight. Let it be recorded in your book tonight. Goodbye to bad rubbish. The most monstrous betrayal of Islam ever committed in history, committed by those who control that state.
This is not Riyadh. It's the Riviera, Saint-Tropez, Cannes, Monte Carlo, a strip of well-oiled French hedonism and unchecked excess. Where $500 bottles of rosé champagne are used in food fights. It is also a place where some of the richest and most powerful Saudi royals spend the summer, far from the unrest, far from the violence, far from the threats of Osama bin Laden.
When I see this, I think that they fiddle while Rome burns.
Fleeing the heat for European resorts has become a royal Saudi tradition. Until he became too sick to travel, the Saudi King Fahd would arrive every August in his personal 747 aircraft. That's him in the wheelchair, with a huge entourage, to spend the summer at a gigantic palace he had built outside Marbella, Spain, used at most just once a year. May Yamani saw firsthand the lavish lifestyle of the Saudi royal family when her father, Sheikh Yamani, served as oil minister of Saudi Arabia in the 1970s.
Young princess and
Now living in exile in London, a fellow at the Royal Institute of International Affairs, she has emerged as one of the harshest critics of the Saudi royal family.
there is no attempt at discretion. People hear about the hundreds of cars, restaurants, lavish spending, and it angers them because they've been taught that this wealth belongs to Allah and then belongs to them.
This summer, even as Saudi authorities braced for a new round of al-Qaeda attacks, royal family members were once again all over the Riviera, in the water, on the beach, in the shops. Fancy jewelry was going fast, including this $1.2 million emerald and diamond necklace sold to a Saudi prince. Also hot was the latest in Parisian fashion, such as this $10,000 Christian Lacroix outfit with purple raccoon boas sold to a Saudi princess. The rise in the price of oil has been good for someone. In the harbor in Cannes, we counted at least 7 huge Saudi yachts, some of the biggest in the world. The yacht of Prince Sultan, the Saudi defense minister, here. The yacht of one of the king's sons there. And in the middle of them all, complete with its own helicopter, the yacht of the Saudi prince, who is described as the 5th richest man in the world, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal.
We're just vacationing like any other vacationers, and I'm with my daughter, my son here. They're jet skiing right now, and they're skiing innocently like any other family. You know, it's like any other family, yes?
Well, not quite, right?
No, excuse me, like any other family in the middle of the sea.
After months of trying to find a member of the royal family willing to talk with us about what some see as a crisis facing the kingdom, we were summoned to Cannes and transported to the yacht of Prince Al-Walid, one of the 5,000 Saudi princes. Prince Al-Walid said he was eager to dispel what he calls the myth that his royal family is threatened by any crisis.
These are no crisis. These are issues that any country have to face. But I cannot call these crises.
So in Saudi Arabia, you don't see a crisis?
I don't see crisis whatsoever.
There was certainly no sense of crisis on board the prince's yacht, the Kingdom. The 47-year-old divorced billionaire, whose uncle is the king, was eager to show us around the vessel.
Yeah, this is the main saloon here.
281 feet long, once owned by Donald Trump.
Don't forget, it's a used boat.
It's a used boat.
Oh, yes, that's a used boat.
Just a used boat.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Best you can
exactly,
do,
Mr. Trump enjoyed it. I'm enjoying it.
In this rare glimpse inside the royal yacht, the prince told us he allows no liquor on board.
These are the old planes and new planes.
But there's just about everything else, including models of his fleet of private jets, missing only the new 747 jumbo jet he is adding next spring.
Do you ever get a sense that it's just all too much?
No, no. Look, wealth is a blessing. And if it's utilized properly, without abusing it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
In fact, the prince is proud to be known as one of the richest people in the world.
Why should I be embarrassed?
22, $23 billion?
Thanks to God, it is around that.
Prince Al Walid has shrewdly invested in dozens of American and European companies, their logos on display, including, as he reminded us, a very familiar one.
I'm invested in Disney, and Disney happens to be owning ABC also.
That is correct.
So indirectly I have a stake with you, so don't upset me much.
I see.
No. That's not a threat, Tori. It's a joke.
But what is no joke is the way most people live back in Saudi Arabia, a sharp contrast to the royal family's Riviera lifestyle. Those not in the royal family, the overwhelming majority, face a faltering economy despite the rising oil prices. Official estimates of unemployment for young Saudi men are put at 1 out of 3.
And I think of the anger of those young men who are reading about all this and discussing it on the websites.
This is no secret to the people of Saudi Arabia.
It's no more a secret. The princes are asleep.
But that's not how the prince sees it from the deck of his yacht in the Mediterranean. He sees the royal family as beloved by its subjects.
The interaction and the relation between the Saudi ruling family and the people, I would say, is further than ideal. It's utopian.
It's utopia.
I think it's ideal. And if you would like to press me a little bit more, I would say utopias.
Utopia.
Yes.
But if true, there's trouble in utopia. Each night, a dissident Islamic group beams a satellite broadcast into Saudi Arabia, calling for an end to the royal family. The broadcast comes from London, where this man, Saad Al-Faqi, a former surgeon and university professor, berates the royal family's lavish spending as a mockery of the Islamic religion. Al-Faqi wore a headdress when he talked with us.
Actually, they are enemies of Islam. They are actually destroying the name of Islam.
The Saudis have tried to block Al-Faqi's satellite transmissions and recently accused him of being part of a terrorist plot to assassinate members of the royal family.
Are you someone who has plotted to kill members of the royal family?
Of course not. If I thought it is a good thing, I would have worked on it.
Your answer is no.
The answer is no.
You don't want to see them assassinated.
Well, it's good to see them disappear. It's good to see them disappear.
When Al-Faqi used his broadcast last year to call for public demonstrations in Saudi Arabia, more than 200 people took to the streets. The first time in memory such an event had taken place. Most of those involved were arrested.
Well, you know, the official position of Saudi Arabia is that public demonstrations are not allowed.
And how do you feel about that?
To me, really, I'm indifferent to that.
Indifferent.
And personally, frankly speaking.
And what we discovered about some of the other royal princes, their alleged roles in prostitution rings and cocaine smuggling, certainly won't help. This is Monte Carlo on the French Riviera, home to one of Europe's top nightclubs, Jimmy's, the scene of what would become a wild night. In our 2020 investigation, the royal family of Saudi Arabia.
Jimmy's was an after-hour club in Monaco that if you didn't have money, you didn't belong there.
But a 2020 undercover team worked its way inside, including cameraman Tony Foreman.
When we got there, I think it was about 2:30 in the morning, the joint was packed. We were there to try to find a group of Saudi royals who we had been told might be at the club. We found them. They were there with women and a lot of booze.
As the Saudis left the club, our team followed them back to their huge yacht and saw a new round of women arriving.
I filmed all of that, and I felt we'd gotten enough. And I said, let's get out of here.
That's when trouble began. We were spotted by two men from the royal entourage who gave chase after us through the winding streets of Monte Carlo.
And we made a bad turn, and got blocked, and they pulled right behind us, and they had us cornered.
Producer Jill Rackmill was in the passenger seat and says the men seemed desperate to get our tapes.
He said, do you want to die? Do you want to die right now, right here tonight? Because I will kill you. I will kill you tonight. You will die tonight. You don't give me every single tape, you're going to die. Do you understand me?
Our tapes and discs were destroyed, even the one in the camera hidden under the seat.
Something snapped in him, and he tore through the car and got that tape.
Yet another example of the secret life of the Saudi royal family, or at least some of them, the kind of unchecked behavior that the monarchy tries to keep quiet, the kind of behavior that has enraged fundamentalist religious groups and liberal reformers who both seek an end to the royal family's reign.
They are not only involved in financial corruption, they are involved to their feet with the worst type of moral corruption you can imagine.
And in the course of our 2020 investigation, we found plenty to back that up, starting with prostitutes. Convicted Madam Annika Brumark and one of her call girls, Andrea Dalebout, were involved in one of two huge French prostitution rings that catered to the rich and the royal. The stock in trade was beautiful women and young boys brought to certain high-ranking Saudi princes at beachfront hotels and yachts docked in the harbor.
So they come to Europe and they do everything that they can do.
You get a huge amount of money.
How much?
How much? Well, it goes to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000.
What? Really?
Yes, of course.
That much money?
Yes, if you really have a prince who likes you, my God, it's nothing. It's even nothing. That's maybe for one night.
The French court verdict in the most recent prostitution case lists the name of one customer who received many women, Prince Abdelaziz bin Fahd, son of Saudi King Fahd. Such behavior in Saudi Arabia is a crime under its strict laws and would result in serious punishment, at least for a commoner.
When you hear about someone who broke the law, the question really is, who is he? And the prince is above and outside the law.
Saudi law is even harsher in regard to drugs. It's one of the crimes for which public beheadings have been carried out for years. In fact, just last month, 3 accused drug smugglers were beheaded in a public ceremony. But at the same time, U.S. and French authorities tell 2020 that Saudi officials are protecting a royal prince accused of one of the biggest cocaine deals in Europe in recent times. His name is Nayef bin Fawaz al-Shalan, now under indictment by U.S. and French authorities, but safely living in Saudi Arabia, according to Tom Raffanello of the Drug Enforcement Administration in Miami.
His status is, he's a fugitive in the United States. He's a fugitive in violation of federal narcotics laws.
According to U.S. and French authorities, the prince moved some 2 tons of cocaine from South America to this airport outside Paris, using his diplomatic status and a royal family 727 jet.
It doesn't happen without him. He's a key co-conspirator. He's the straw that stirs the drink. He made it happen. No plane, no dope. Dope stays in Colombia.
U.S. authorities say the deal was actually put together by the prince in the Saudi desert, where the prince, the one on the left, posed with his alleged co-conspirators. The prince has claimed that he was cleared of any wrongdoing by the Saudi government, and that he was talking about bringing in plastic piping, not cocaine.
That's an alibi. He's smart.
America's once top-secret drone campaign is slowly emerging into the open. Today, a new revelation from the American media that drones like these have been operating for years out of a secret base in Saudi Arabia. Their target is members of this group, Al-Qaeda, in the Arabian Peninsula, based in neighbouring Yemen, and which Saudi Arabia has long been working with the US to fight, partly because many of its members come from Saudi. The pace of drone strikes against the group has been growing rapidly in recent years. American officials said the first time the CIA used the Saudi base was to kill this man, Anwar al-Awlaki, in September 2011. That killing remains controversial since Awlaki was a US citizen. Supporters say strikes like this have seriously damaged Al-Qaeda's ability to plan attacks. But critics say they're of questionable legality and that they cause too many civilian casualties and alienate local populations.
Now, Brave New Foundation went and talk to people on the ground where these drone strikes happen. Now, a lot of these victims are from Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, etc. They're not all from Al Majala. In fact, Al Majala, as I told you, was a Tomahawk cruise missile strike. But look at the different drone strikes that have killed those kids throughout the world.
Mayazal Khan, 3 years old, South Waziristan, January 23, 2007.
Noor Saeed, 8 years old, South Waziristan, February 14th.
This is one of the most precise weapons that we have in our arsenal.
Naeem 10 years old, North Waziristan.
Our counterterrorism efforts have been exceptionally surgical and exceptionally targeted.
They have been very precise, precision strikes against Al-Qaeda.
Fatima Khan, North Waziristan.
U.S. officials say drones are highly accurate.
Zayed Wali Shah, 7 years
old. Drones have not caused a huge number of civilian casualties.
Aisha, 3 years old.
We are able to target with much more precision.
Nisar Khan.
All the actions that we take is totally consistent with international law.
Naeem Khan.
In the past year, there hasn't been a single collateral death.
Orphans of the Bismillah
easy
family.
decisions to make, but life isn't easy, war isn't easy.
We are very careful about avoiding civilian casualties.
So when we say that the kids were not killed and there was no civilian casualties, we are indisputably lying, based on reporting, based on international groups that have gone on the ground and seen the dead kids that you just saw. And if that doesn't also cause you to think, hey, maybe we're doing something wrong there as well, you got to question yourself on that. Now, the other thing is, the people who've been doing this also have concerns because they've seen it. One particular guy is Brandon Bryant. He was a U.S. drone pilot. And he quit because he was racked with guilt over killing civilians. Now, the U.S. media, of course, has not covered that story almost at all.
Prince Al Walid has the ear of world leaders past and present, and right now he hopes that President Obama is listening, for the prince wants more US engagement in the Middle East.
Frankly speaking, Obama has not been very successful in our region here, and I hope his second term will prove to be different than his first term. But right now, I think that, with the economic situation in the United States stabilizing, Europe stabilizing, he can give a lot more attention to the Middle East, and we can only say we hope that he can give more attention to the Middle East because it's needed badly.
This prince wants changes here. He says Arab countries must reform.
I like all those Arab countries who did not really have any instability or revolution to really wake up and immediately to reform and change before have this tide reach them.
Like everyone else in the Middle East, he is watching Libya closely.
Do you approve of what the West is doing in Libya with NATO providing airstrikes on behalf of the Libyan rebels?
I think what's happening in Libya is a big shameful act. The U.S. has no policy, no strategy, no objective, no mission statement.
Although he doesn't speak for the government, as a powerful investor, Walid does monitor the oil pricing plans.
We have turbulence, in Iran, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in our region. This will create some psychological impact that will inevitably impact the price of oil. But Saudi Arabia is playing a big role in stabilizing price of oil in the neighborhood of 100, 110, with the hope that when things subside in our region, it will go back to the neighborhood of $70 to $80.
So what else do you have in mind for here? I mean, you have everything.
I first met Walid at his luxurious country estate 6 years ago, where the trappings look more like Las Vegas than Saudi Arabia. Many of his employees are women who dress Western style within the walls of his empire, and he wants more rights for all Saudi women.
No society can advance if 50% of its population is locked up in the living room or just cooking in the kitchen. And the Arab world right now is forced to face these realities sooner than later.
Walid does say the current turmoil will change the Middle East forever. How it turns out, not even he can say.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved this as the last revelation in the Quran, the last one. On the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and recorded in the Sahih of Imam Al Bukhari, the last revelation that came down in the Quran was a revelation in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared in Surah Al-Baqarah 279, 280, 281, وَإِلَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا, if you do not give up riba, فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, and take notice of a declaration of war from Allah and His Messenger.
Oh, definitely. These are strategic and core investors. I invested in Citigroup 20 years ago, and in News Corp almost 19 years ago also. And these are core investors. My relationship with Citigroup is forever. My relationship with Mr. Murdoch and News Corp is also is forever. No doubt about that. These are core investors.
So that would stay whether he comes or goes?
Oh, no. This is with News Corp. And News Corp happens to be controlled and by Mr. Rupert Murdoch, who has my full confidence, completely.
What do you think of James Murdoch?
Oh, I mean, James Murdoch is as good as father. But for sure, right now we have one boss. It's Rupert Murdoch.
So we're on our way now to the Prince's yacht, which featured in a James Bond film. Before we meet the man himself, it's worth putting His Royal Highness's shareholding in perspective. Rupert Murdoch owns 12% of News Corporation. Prince Al Walid owns 7%, so he's an incredibly powerful voice in the company. What's more, the Prince is far, far richer than Rupert Murdoch. He's reckoned to be worth $20 billion. Rupert Murdoch, by contrast, is worth a relatively modest $7.5 billion. Cheers, thank you very much for having us on board. I met the Prince on an upper deck of his yacht.
Indeed, for having us on your boat.
Come and sit down over here.
We hope that as this thing unfolds, the truth will come out, because it's very important for me and my company, who are investors in News Corp since 20 years, to get this in order, because ethics to me is very important.
I mean, there's some terribly unethical things have taken place at News Corporation. I mean, awful things like hacking into the telephone of a murdered teenager, hacking into the telephone of relatives of British soldiers who've died in action. I mean, these are awful things.
I'd just like to correct you. The problems happened at the News of the World newspaper and not at News Corp level. And I like to differentiate between News Corp, conglomerate, and the News of the World that was shut down. And unfortunately, that these tactics that were used by those tabloid newspapers in the UK were done not only by News of the World, but by other newspapers and tabloid newspapers also.
But James Murdoch's in an uncomfortable position, isn't he? Because either he knew what was going on and didn't tell the British authorities, in which case he's liable perhaps to a criminal prosecution, or he didn't know, in which case, as a manager, he wasn't in control of his own organisation. I mean, either way, they don't come out looking good.
I think we have to wait for the Commission that has been appointed by the Prime Minister, and look at the results. Why should we anticipate and predict and preempt what they're going to come up with? The facts are going to come out very imminently and soon, hopefully.
But one of the dangers for you as a major investor in News Corporation is how this contagion from this crisis in the UK has spread. I mean, now you've got calls for a Senate inquiry in the US. There's criticism of Murdoch and News Corporation on newspapers across the entire world. I mean, this is a really serious problem for you as an investor, isn't it?
Well, you know, I hope that this matter doesn't get over-politicized, because clearly some politicians in UK and United States right now would like to set the record clear and take revenge from Mr. Murdoch's conglomerate that was not really on their side some time ago. I think this thing should not be over-politicized. I think we should give the Commission its right to investigate the whole process and to come with its findings and to the Prime Minister, and then accordingly we can really see how high this thing went up.
But what do you think as a major shareholder? I mean, you're the second biggest shareholder after Rupert Murdoch himself. I mean, you know, what have you been saying to Rupert Murdoch about what's been happening?
Prince Al Walid has shrewdly invested in dozens of American and European companies. Their logos on display, including, as he reminded us, a very familiar one.
I'm invested in Disney, and Disney happens to be owning ABC also.
That is correct.
So indirectly I have a stake with you, so don't upset me much.
I see.
No. That's not a threat, don't worry. It's a joke.
The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, that the last people to come out to Dajjal will be women.
Waiting in the tent is the prince's fourth wife, 27-year-old Princess Amira, and her friend, an Egyptian television star.
Is he a very difficult man to be married to? Does he drive you mad sometimes?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. You know, with him, you have to be prepared for anything at any time.
But don't you worry that your husband is surrounded by so many beautiful women? I mean, not to say that you're not a beautiful woman, but don't you sometimes get a little bit kind of, why does he need all these women around him?
No, because I know the cause behind it. No, I actually encourage it.
Do you?
Yeah.
When the army is swallowed, then the Mahdi is going to be attacked by another army, and this is now an army of the Quraysh, an army of the Kalb. And remember that armies are under the control of governments. The Mahdi will defeat this army, and when our army is defeated, that is the end of Saudi Arabia. Goodbye to bad rubbish. Goodbye to bad rubbish. Let it be recorded in my book tonight. Let it be recorded in your book tonight. Goodbye to bad rubbish. The most monstrous betrayal of Islam ever committed in history, committed by those who control that state. It was a secret agreement. It came in the wake of the war of 1973, which means we have to put question marks now behind that war. Maybe there's more to that war than we know. King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, rahimahullah, imposed an oil boycott on the United States. Maybe someone whispered to him to do it, because they wanted him to do it. Because I believe in the sincerity of King Faisal, rahimahullah. Yes, I do. As soon as that oil boycott was imposed in the wake of the war of 1973, October 73, it was called the Yom Kippur War. Some of you may not have been born then. And the oil boycott was imposed by the Arab oil producing countries. something happened to the price of gold. I was looking only at the value of the dollar. That's my mistake. I looked at the dollar and I saw that the dollar fell in value by 400% in a span of just 1 week. This was correct analysis, but this is not the more important thing. The more important thing is that when the oil boycott was imposed, the price of oil soared from $40 an ounce, for $40 a barrel, to $160 a barrel. And the Arab oil producing countries, their eyes open. Oh yes, it looked like a lot of greenbacks. Greenback is the US dollar. That seems to have been, that seems to have been an integral part of the plan, but after the azan, inshallah, we'll continue. In the wake of the war of 1973 and the oil embargo and the phenomenal rise in the price of oil from, what was it? The price of gold rose from 40 to 160. I cannot remember the rise in the price of oil, but it's also a phenomenal rise in the price of oil, because oil was selling for $4, $5, $6 a barrel prior to the war. The Arab oil producing countries suddenly realized that there is a lot of money to be made here. And the United States had a very crafty and cunning Secretary of State, a man named Henry Kissinger. The president was, what's his name again? Richard Nixon. Yeah. So Kissinger went to Saudi Arabia, and Kissinger was successful. I hope and pray that I'm not speaking unjustly of King Faisal rahimahullah. If I am, may Allah forgive me. But this is secret negotiations, and I don't have the records, so I'm reading between the lines that Kissinger was successful in convincing Faisal rahimahullah. And when he convinced Faisal, Faisal realized that there's a lot of money to be made now. This is the deal. We want you to make a law that you will sell your oil for only US dollars. And Faisal fell for it. May Allah forgive him. From the time you decide that you will sell your oil for US dollars, you then went on to convince all the other Arab oil producing countries, because they looked up to Saudi Arabia, and they all quickly agreed. And OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, was then successful in establishing a rule for all member states of OPEC that we all agree that we will sell oil for only US dollars. And that was the birth of something called the petrodollar, and that is what they wanted at Bretton Woods, but Imran didn't understand it. No. That was the ultimate prize that they wanted. When they started in 1944 in Bretton Woods, but I did not understand it. And now they have established something called a cartel, like a monopoly. A monopoly means you take control of the market and you fix the price. So no competition anymore in the market. This is haram. Even in American law, this is haram. Yeah. A man came to the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. I hope Bank Negara is listening. A man came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and said, O Messenger of Allah, prices are too high. Impose price control. He said, no. The man came back a second time. The man came back a third time. 3 times. O Messenger of Allah, impose price control. Fix the price. The Prophet said, no. Not in our market. Not in the market of Islam. There is no such thing as price control. There is no such thing as fixed wages. There is no such thing as a minimum wage. I hope the Malaysian government is listening. Not in Islam. Islam gives to the world a free market and a fair market. And the market determines prices. No, you cannot say, Tariq, this price, and put it up on the wall there. That's haram. Tariq will be sold on the basis of the market price. Roti Chanai, this much. Haram. I wonder whether the muftis know that. So there is no such thing as monopoly in our Islamic market. There is no such thing as a cartel. You cannot fix prices. You cannot control the market as producers, which is what OPEC has done. This is not Islam. No. Has any scholar, Salafi or Sufi, denounced OPEC for violating Allah's law and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? I'm not aware of it. And so now you have a controlled market. And forget it. The price of oil is no longer determined by the free and fair market. Forget that. The price of oil is now manipulated by those who control the market. And what they did with oil, they did with cocoa, they did with coffee, they did with sugar, they did with rice, they did with all commodities. They manipulate the market and they fix the price. It's no longer a free and a fair market anywhere in the world. It's a Zionist market of thieves. Is this what the Jewish religion gave you to the world? Not at all. You have corrupted the Jewish religion and you're destroying the Jewish religion. Now comes the interesting part of the subject. The price of oil has been going in only one direction since then. Have you noticed? It was $6, $7, $8 a barrel. And then it went to 12, and then it went to 15, then it went to 20, then it went to 30, then it went to 40, then it went to 60, then it went to 80, and 90, and 100. It's more than 100 now. And all the time Imran thought it's a US dollar collapsing, because I was only focusing on this part of the subject. And as the US dollar collapsed, went down in value, all the rest of the money in the world is going down in the value. If you think your Malaysian money has the same value that it had 5 years ago, you're dreaming. 5 years ago you were richer, with the same ringgit in your pocket. And your ringgit has been falling and you don't even know it. So I was focusing on that part of the subject, not on this part. That's my mistake. The price of oil is going up and up and up and up and up, and that is not by accident. That's a part of the plan. That's why the Prophet said, believers must not touch that gold. From the time oil is sold for US dollars, the oil is now functioning as money. Where gold was functioning as money to back the paper, now oil is backing the paper. So number one, the US dollar is now given an opportunity to fly higher than it has ever flown before. Even while the value in terms of gold is going down, the United States is becoming more and more wealthy. It doesn't have to bother about any amount of gold in Fort Knox anymore. In order to make money, all you need is three things. You need a printing press, you need paper, and you need ink. And you can print and make as much money as you want. While those stupid fools, those ignorant fools, I don't know what Allah is going to do to them on Judgment Day, including Imran Hussein. The scholars of Islam failed miserably to even understand what was happening, much less to protest. What a colossal failure of Islamic scholarship in the contemporary world. So the US dollar since 1973 now can fly more easily than it ever flew before. And the United States becomes more and more powerful. United States has a greater and greater capacity to rip off mankind and to advance its agenda of ruling the world. But that's not the only story. That's not all there is in the story. It's more than that. The Arabs saw the paper coming. US dollars, piles and piles and piles of the US dollars coming. Because the price of oil is going up and up and up and up. And the US dollar is the international money. But guess what? Henry Kissinger was smart. Faisal didn't understand that when you control the market for oil, which is haram, and then you keep on inflating the price, it's going up and up more than any other commodity in the whole world market. Oil going up and up and up and up. Oil is the biggest thing traded in the world market today, oil. Guess what happens to the rest of the world that cannot afford? Guess what happens to Egypt and to Pakistan and to Bangladesh and to Indonesia? As Saudi Arabia and the Arab Gulf states reaping and embracing more and more, so many US dollars, they don't know what to do with it. That part of the world is growing poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. And the Zionists are sitting back and smiling, while scholars of Islam eating roti canai and drinking teh tarik. And so our own people, the Arab oil producing countries, our own people, through the petrodollar system, have played a major role in impoverishing and enslaving their own Muslim brothers and sisters around the world, to the advantage of the Zionists. That's why he said, don't touch that gold.
Now I'll give you the details. During the administration of President Carter, there was a man by the name of Mr. Henry Kissinger. He went to every leading oil-producing country in the world, and he said, I'd like to cut you a deal. And they said, what? He said, we will send America's oil companies over to produce your fields. We'll make you rich. You'll be the wealthiest people on the face of the earth. You must sign on the dotted line to do two things. You may have heard this. Very few have. I would not had I not been there. You must do two things. Number one, you must denominate all oil sales in American dollars. Since 1960 and the inception of the great oil boom, all oil sales have been done in American dollars. Watch this carefully. You've got to know what to do when you go back to those booths over there in the exhibit room, and you'd better do it today. Number one, you must denominate all oil sales in American dollars. Number two, they said, what's that? We like the first one, solid as a dollar. You remember those days? What's number two? He said, you must take a certain percentage. I wish I knew that percentage. Somehow I missed it back in those days. He said, you must take a certain percentage of everything we buy oil from you with, and you must turn around and invest it in American T-bills and securities. Basically, in a nutshell, the oil-producing countries of the world would buy our national debt, $9 trillion. Watch out. Something has happened. Before I go into what has happened, may I say that two nations wouldn't sign on the dotted line. Who were they? Iraq and Iran. A man appeared with me on a radio talk show the other day. Write his name down. It'll also be on the camera today. His name is Abner Dethridge. He was the man, one of the men sent by the State Department of the United States of America to Saddam Hussein back in February through March of 1990 and said, if you invade Kuwait, the State Department and the United States of America will do nothing about it. It was a setup. It was a trap. Saddam didn't know it. Saddam had to be destroyed because he wouldn't sign on this dotted line. That's the only reason. There are a lot of people in the world that have murdered more people than Saddam Hussein did. I'm not taking up for him. I know he was a wicked man, but I'm telling you the facts. And here he did. What did he do? You remember that Kuwait had been a part of Iraq prior to the last war, and when the world was divided up after the last war by the powers that be, Kuwait was taken away from Iraq. And so the statement, so Saddam said, I want Iraq back. He went and invaded it on August the 1st, 1990, and immediately after that, who came down on him? Why? It was a setup. All President Bush Sr. wanted was an excuse to invade Saddam, to get back at him, because Saddam was not willing to sign on the dotted line in the days of Henry Kissinger. What was the second nation that was not willing to sign on the dotted line? Iran. It's not nuclear. What's happening in Iran has nothing at all to do with nuclear. Iran is years away from producing a nuclear bomb. Why are we using nuclear as an excuse to invade Iran or to do something about Iran or put sanctions on Iran? North Korea has the bomb. China has the bomb. On and on and on. Israel. You could go on and on with the countries that have the bomb. Why are we singling out Iran, who doesn't even have one yet? Because Iran would not sign on the dotted line in the days of Mr. Henry Kissinger, and they must be destroyed at any price, even if you Americans have to pay the lives of your sons to go there and do it.